Hello there, it's Mary Schiller of maryschiller.com and creator of Let's Make Money, Honey. I am so pleased to be here with you live. It is 8 p.m. here in Paris. If you are joining me live, please give me a thumbs up symbol or type a note to me in the chat so I know that you're here. And if you're watching on the replay, of course, please feel free to post your thoughts and comments, and I will reply to them as soon as I see them. So let me know that you're here, and I, as always, want to make this responsive to you. Hey, Mimi, thanks for joining. I want to make this a responsive conversation to what is on your mind, so I don't have a big agenda of what I want to discuss. I do have something, I'm glad you're here. Hi, Jeanette. I do have something I can start us off with. Hey, how are you, Karen? Nice to see you. And I will just start us off by saying that one of the things that used to be very confusing to me about money, and I'm wondering if you can relate to this, is that money looks very powerful. It looks like it is actually, sometimes anyway, it looks like it's this thing that has some sort of control over what we do, over what we think, over what we think we can do. It has a tendency, at least it used to in the past to me, it doesn't so much anymore, but it used to look like the great and powerful Oz, in the Wizard of Oz, if I didn't have quote unquote enough of it. Hi, Laura, good to see you. It looked like it had power and control over what I was able to do, over the decisions I was making. And it really had this aura of just being kind of an overarching, I don't even have a good word for it, but sort of a determiner, I guess I would say, of what my life was like. So I'm wondering if you can relate to that at all, if money has in the past, or maybe it currently looks to you like it has power in some way, or that it has power over you. And hi, Stephanie, thanks for joining. I appreciate you being here. Oh, Mimi, you can relate to that. Okay. Yeah, Laura. And the way that this used to sort of manifest itself in my life was really evident to me when I was working in a job that I didn't like. Yeah, Mimi, I'm sure that, I'm glad that you don't believe it anymore, but most people, I think, do see it this way. And for me, in this job that I used to have that I talk about, that I felt really stuck in, it seemed like the money that I was earning at this job had the power to make the decision for me to stay in the job, even though I didn't like it. It's kind of crazy when I think about it now. It looks really weird to me. But I know that there are people maybe watching this right now, or people around the world, I know many of them, who have that sensation. Yeah, I'm glad you never believed that money is the root of all evil, but a lot of people do. And I can talk about that as well, because it relates to this idea of money having power over us, and money having the power to determine what our life looks like. And so I remember having this sensation when I was in this job that I so desperately wanted to get out of, that, well, I'm never going to be able to find a job that pays this well, or I'm never going to be able to make this kind of money on my own, so the money is really the thing that is keeping me in this job, because it's the thing that's making me be able to live the way that I live, and all these thoughts that I had. And what really kind of woke me up was realizing, and we've talked about this, and I talk about it in the course, we talked about it on a call as well, that the power that I thought was in money was actually me. Not even in me, but it was me. And I have to give some credit. I don't think I've mentioned this book before, but I'll mention it now, and I'll put it in the, actually I'll type it right here. There's a book simply called Money by a gentleman named Arnold Patent, and it gets a little heady in places. But I remember reading something in there that was describing the fact that money looks like it is the power, but what we're missing is that it's actually us, that the power is who we are and what we are. And as soon as I started to kind of glimpse that more clearly, I started realizing that, you know, I've been looking at money as this thing that has all this power over me. And what I've been missing is the fact that A, that is simply false. And B, anything that I want to do, I can do. And I have the wherewithal and the creative abilities to either make the money that I need to do whatever it is, or figure out some creative way to do it without the money. And it kind of slowly started chipping away the way that I was seeing, chipping away at the way I was seeing money as this all-powerful determining force in my life. And then, of course, when I suddenly was unemployed, I realized very, very clearly that the power was actually in me, and the power was me. So even now, I am very aware of the fact that the way I speak about money has changed. I used to, you know, make decisions about how much to spend on things based on an idea of, well, I don't have this money, so I can't make plans to spend X amount on something because I don't have the money. Now it's more like, okay, if I want this thing that costs X amount, I'll just go make it. I'll just get the money. So it doesn't even seem like a question anymore that money has some sort of power over me and, you know, is going to allow me to do things or not do certain things. It's more like, no, I have the ability to do this. It's no problem. And so that simple, relatively simple shift has really made a huge difference to me. So I wanted to just start the conversation with that. You find a way to do it without the money, or proof that money has no power. And the way that I started to see this was, I started thinking about people who don't have riches in the way that we're talking about in terms of finances, but have been able to do amazing things anyway. You know, there's tons of examples of this. People who just decide one day that they're going to travel the world, and maybe they start with, you know, a couple $1,000s in, or enough to buy their first plane ticket. They arrive wherever they arrive, and they figure out how to make the rest of the money when they get there, you know, that kind of thing. People do that sort of thing all the time. And you would think, oh, to travel the world, you know, I'd need tens of thousands of dollars. Well, actually, maybe you don't. Could you speak to, it's not about me in relation to this? Yeah, thanks for asking that, Jeanette. I think that was another big piece of this for me, was that when I saw that money was not the powerful thing, and that you and I are the powerful thing, I realized that because I am this power, and by the way, just as an aside, I really get bothered by the idea that we have to be empowered, because we already are the power, so we're giving the power to ourselves. So you can forget about having to be empowered about anything ever again. So anyway, when I saw that I was the power, I realized that with that power came the ability to look outside myself. I no longer had to try to seek that anywhere else. And so suddenly my focus was a lot less turned inward and was turned outward towards, how can I use this power that I have been given just by virtue of being human to help someone else. So, you know, in the job that I was in that I wanted to get out of, looking back on it, my thoughts were so much focused on myself. It's kind of, it's a little bit embarrassing, to be honest. It was all about, how can I get out of here? Or how can I make this a better experience for myself? Or, you know, how can I, you know, it's just constantly about myself. And when I started to kind up from that, even when I was still in the job. It was interesting because things started to shift in the job rather quickly, and in a direction that felt much more, what do I want to say, much more focused on where could I go next to really have an impact on people? What could I do next that could really have an impact on people, instead of, oh, I'm just stuck in this job and I'm powerless to change it. You know, those thoughts kind of started to move out of the way, and I started being able to look more towards the outside world, if you will. So does that answer your question, Jeanette? Because the two things are definitely related. And I still notice that when I have, when I start getting into thoughts about myself and me, and this and that, you know, things that are very sort of self-focused, it's a very quick wake-up call to me to go, oh, wait a minute, I'm going to just take a time out here and see what else comes to me, because I'm just not seeing this very well. Oh, great. I'm glad, Jeanette. I'm glad. You know, and just jumping back up to what Mimi was saying about proof that money has no power, you know, a lot of what I share in the program, as you probably noticed, is that other things don't have power either, that they are intrinsic to us, like freedom and security. You know, we have this tendency in our culture to continually look towards other things to bring us a feeling of freedom or a feeling of security. And I see those in the same way that I see power now, that those things are all simply innate gifts that we've been given just because we're here. And so when we stop having to try to get those from something, because that's not how it works, we're suddenly a lot more open, it seems to me, to ideas that might come to us for things to do. We have a lot more time because we're not so focused on trying to get freedom and power and security and all these things that we already have. And so that's what I find fun about this particular conversation, is that when we're able to see all of this more clearly, that all of the things that we thought we had to try and get, we don't have to, well, then we have all this free creative time on our hands to look towards people out there and see what we can do to bring value to them. And money starts to become much easier to come by because of that. You know, for example, this week has been sort of interesting. I have been taking a lot of time off this month, and just kind of doing a little bits of work here and there on my business, and kind of making some shifts, but not a lot of major time being spent. And I've still managed to make money this month. And that's been really interesting, because it's like I'm not even really doing all of that much, and still the money is coming. And so that's been an interesting lesson. So I don't know if any of you have found that as you've gone through this course or spent some time with this, that money can come to you a little more easily than you may realize, which shows me, at least, that that I truly am the power, that money is sort of mine to be part of and to play with and to be creative with. It's not this force that's like exerting pressure on me anymore, thank goodness, because that's a really tough way to live. So I think I'm going to pause there just for a moment and see if you have any thoughts or questions, or if there's any kind of update that you'd like to share for Team Money Honey. I think that was Sherry who came up with that. She isn't able to be here today, but Sherry, if you're watching this replay, thanks for the Team Money Honey idea. So what questions or anything is on your mind, I'm happy to open up the floor. And if not, I'll just keep talking because I got lots to say. Mimi, could thinking that I need a certain amount and I don't have it, or I'm not making it, hold me back? That's a really good question. Do you think we can attract money? All right, I think I'm going to answer Antonio's question first, and then I'll come back to yours, Mimi, because I just had a quick thought about Antonio. Thank you for asking that. The way it looks to me is that we don't have to do any of this attracting stuff, because if we are in essence equal to money, we're like the same, that money is simply another expression of who we are as human beings. It's an expression of our creative output. It's an expression of the impact that we're making on other people. Then it's coming from within. You know, like we talked about on another call, and it's in the recording in there, that, you know, we are the source of money because we are essentially money ourselves. There's no separation between us. So there's nothing that we have to do to attract money in. It's more like recognizing that it's already here and we can simply do things to access it. You know, it's like, I think I must have put this in, I know I wrote it in the book that I have coming out, about my friend who said, you know, just go get some more money, when I was telling him that I was struggling with my bills and stuff. And I was like, what do you mean just go get some more? And he basically was saying what I'm saying to you right now, that it isn't something that we have to somehow attract to us. It's more like, oh, I can just go get some because it's right here. It's like, oh, I can just, you know, go to the cupboard and get some sugar because it's already here. I already have it. So it's a lot less, there's a lot less effort required than 99.9% of us believe. You know, there's just really, it really just doesn't require the amount of energy expenditure that most people seem to believe it does. So let me know if that answered your question, Antonio. I appreciate it. And Mimi, good thinking that I need a certain amount and I don't have it, or I'm not making it hold me back. I don't personally think that any thought we have holds us back from anything. The way that I see the role of thought in general is that it gives us an experience of life that we're having, but it really doesn't have much power in the same way that I was talking about before. The power that I'm referring to is the power that exists way, 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 way past this little buzzy thinking that we have sometimes. So, you know, so I don't see that my thoughts really have anything to do with my capabilities or my, you know, taking action or not taking action. And I realize as I'm saying this, that goes against basically everything else in self-help world that is really focused on, you know, trying to change the way you think about things and, you know, taking action despite your thinking and all of that. Well, that seems to me to set thought up as an enemy. And I want to say right now that your thinking is not the enemy, not at all. It's simply a function of being human, that we have thoughts, some of which we like, some of which we don't, but it's all basically neutral. It's there to allow us to have an experience of being here and being human and having this conversation right now, but it's not something that is determining anything at all about your life. And it may take a while for that to sink in, but I would love for you to just sort of contemplate that. Thanks, Antonio. I'm glad that was helpful. And Mimi, I guess I'm not patient enough. I want money to just appear, and because that's not happening, I think it's not enough. It's a bit frustrating. Hi, Dorothy. It's nice to see you. I'll answer that question in a second. You want money to just appear. Well, I mean, the thing about it is, if you want money to appear, there is something that has to come first, in that you need to take some sort of action towards it. But I think where people get a little bit confused is they really think that it takes a lot of effort in order to make money appear. And what I've happily discovered over the last year and a half, since I kind of had this complete turnaround and I started a new business and all of that, is that it actually doesn't take that much effort at all. It's almost like when you listen to this inspiration inside you and you start following that instead of worrying about whatever your thoughts are buzzing about, it's almost like the work is being done for you. I know this sounds a little bit nuts, but I'm sure you've had an experience where you set out to do something because you thought it would be fun, and it was effortless. You know, on the outside, it might have looked like you did a lot of work, but on the inside, it didn't feel like work at all. And money is the same. There's no difference. Money is the same as anything else. You know, it's just another creative expression, but something we need to show up and take a step. It's not going to just, you know, I'm not going to open the door tomorrow and somebody's going to hand me $1 million in a suitcase. You know, I have to actually do something in a direction and listen to myself and see what seems like a great thing to do that might add value to the world. So let me know if that was helpful, Mimi. Yeah, okay, good. So what was it in the money book that spoke to me? It was mostly, really the only thing I remember from it at this moment is what I was talking about earlier, was this thing about power. And that things, money or anything else, frankly, can look like it has power, like it is the power, and that it's outside of us, but it's a trick. It's a trick of the mind, essentially. It's a thought that we have that leads us to believe that something else has more power than we do. And the fact of the matter is that there is nothing more powerful than us. You know, we are a part of, or you can say we are a part of, or you can say we are this incredible infinite system of life, you know, with a capital L. And there isn't anything more powerful than that. It's everything that there is. And so if we are tricked by a thought that says something else has power over us, that's all it is. It's simply a trick of thought and nothing more. And I find that incredibly helpful to realize that there is nothing that has power over me. Jeanette, I like your explanation about internal inspiration and probably externally many visible actions. Yeah, and you can, so, you know, think of somebody who is inspiring to you, you know, who has taken steps in a direction. You know, I always go back to Oprah. I just saw a video about her yesterday where somebody who I follow online went to her house for a brunch fundraiser that she was hosting related to her new book that's coming out. And I forgot what the cause was that she was promoting. But so there were a lot of, you know, big names like Julia Roberts and some other big names there. And they showed a shot of her home in Montecito and Santa Barbara area of California, and she calls it the promised land. And I mean, it is the most amazing estate you've ever seen. I mean, it's gigantic. And I thought to myself, you know, when she started out, she just put one foot in front of the other. You know, she recognized that she had some abilities and she was inspired to do things even though people told her she couldn't. And she just kept following her inspiration. She is no different from you or me. You know, I don't know that I'm going to make $1 billion. I might, I don't know. I'm just following inspiration and seeing where it leads. And that's all that she ever did. She couldn't possibly have had this view of her life. I mean, there's no way, or like J.K. Rowling, they could never have known what was going to happen. They simply followed inspiration. I also love J.K. Rowling's story because, you know, she was a single mom on welfare when she sat in that cafe and just wrote that book, that first book, and just said, I really want to do this. I don't really care what happens, but I want to try it and see. And that's all we can ever do. And just recognizing that we are the power ourselves. And we can't determine our future per se, but we are the agent of it. That the power isn't, you know, something that's being lorded over us, but it's coming through us, if that makes sense. So let me know if that was helpful, Jeanette, and also Dorothy. Mimi, there's a lot of talk about gratitude. What are your thoughts on that? Okay, so, I have a tendency in these things to be a little bit irreverent, so pardon me, but for me personally, spending any time, you guys are laughing at me, spending any time worrying about stuff like that just seems like a waste of time. It's kind of like, I'm here, I have life, I want to do things with my life, and I want to be as creative and valuable as possible with the time that I have. And to spend time in thought and trying to conjure up an emotion like gratitude that is already intrinsic to me. It's another thing that we don't have to work at. It's part of who we are. I mean, we don't have to seek emotions like that. They're simply, they are part of our DNA. So I don't have to do anything to achieve gratitude or feel it more. It's like, I wrote in my first book, The Joy Formula, joy, gratitude, all of those things are what we're made of. And so I can appreciate that fact, but it's nothing that is, that needs to be done separately, I guess I'm trying to say. So, being grateful for what I have, being grateful for where I live, that all seems just very natural and innate to me. And if I happen to have a thought that says that, that's great, but I can't control what thoughts I have, and trying to conjure up any feelings like that just seems like kind of a waste of time and energy. So forgive me if that was offensive to anybody, but that's how it looks to me, and I prefer to act from a place of natural gratitude that I know is already there. So I don't know if that makes sense or not, so let me know. Oh, hi, Ellie. Sometimes when we see their success and try and copy it rather than being present and loving the process of taking action, you're talking about like Oprah, etc. Yeah, and it's been very helpful to me to realize that this power that I was speaking of earlier is equally distributed. So Oprah doesn't have any more of it than you, and J.K. Rowling doesn't have any more of it than you do. It's all equal. We're all equal. There is no one who has more or less of it. There's no one who has more or less ability to earn money than you. Everybody's equal. And it's really just a matter of just taking a step, taking some action, and really, like I was saying before, if you look at people like that, there's no way that they could have had any expectation of an outcome like they achieved. I mean, for heaven's sakes, that would just be ridiculous. There's no way the human mind can think that big, or somebody like Bill Gates or the Apple founders, they couldn't have known. All they knew was they had a spark of inspiration and they just went with it. And to me, that's all we're ever doing. And that's all we can do. And what happens is what happens. And if it ends up being, that you've got $1 billion and you can be philanthropic, that's awesome. If it turns out not the case, well, it doesn't really matter in the end anyway, because we have everything we need already, even if we don't have any money at all. So let's see. Ellie says, oh, Mimi, yeah, you agree with me about the gratitude thing. Okay. As soon as we should be grateful, we're in trouble. But noticing the wonder in things big and small is the definition of blessing, much more than amassing wealth. True. I have no, but let's go back to the comment about money is the root of all evil, and some things like that. I have absolutely no problem with anyone amassing huge amounts of money. I think it's awesome that people are able to do that. I just find it amazing. I think I mentioned on a previous call that I went to Monaco for a day over the summer when my daughter and I went to Nice for a little vacation. And I was just overwhelmed by the beauty of the place and the creative expression that was on display there of the money that people had. I mean, it was just incredible. These gorgeous homes and yachts and beautiful harbor and the beautiful palace that the royalty lives in. I mean, it was just like, wow, this is so cool. So, I think money is fun. I just, and I wouldn't mind amassing more of it so I could have more of an impact in the way that our society, tends to like. So anyway, so that's my 2 cents on that. Great. Dorothy, very helpful. Oh, good. Hey, Susanna, good to see you. So what other questions can I answer? I'm certainly able to hang on here for a while longer. Oops, I'm knocking my table around. Sorry about the wobbles. What else is on your mind that I can address, if anything? I'll pause and take a water break. And hey, Susanna, I knitted this myself. Aren't you impressed? Sort of basic compared to what you make, but it's a little like cape thing. What am I going to do with my first million? Oh, I have lots of plans for my first million. Lots of plans. I want to pay off my daughter's student loans. That's the top priority. And I would love to buy us a bigger home here in Paris. I love our little 300 square foot apartment, but I would love to have one about twice as big as this. That would be like perfect size. And so I would need some more cash to be able to do that. And that would be awesome. And it'd be nice to be able to help my daughter out in that way so that she, can kind of go forth in life without thinking about the debt that she's carrying from all her years of schooling. She's almost done. I think she's got about a year left in her to get her PhD, and then she'll be finished. But she's been in school a long time. Mimi, does the way people deal with money run in the family? I don't really know. The people in my family have been very different, all of us, in the way that we've done things. So not in my family, no. My dad and my brother had their own business for a long time. My dad was pretty successful financially. My brother was too for quite a long time. My sister was a teacher and stayed a teacher her whole career and just kind of went on that track and didn't really deviate at all from that. And then I've had lots and lots of different careers and have kind of been, had a lot of money and had no money and in between. And so in my case, no, I haven't seen that, but that could be true. I'm not sure. Oh, thank you, Stephanie. That's nice. How much to save, spend? What is a safety net? Well, that's a good question. Does a safety net exist? Maybe. I have come to see for myself that I used to think it did, and then I have found out that things can happen that sort of tear it apart very quickly. Such as the recession. If you look at what happened there to a lot of people, it's really not funny because it did affect some people in my family. People who thought they had a safety net suddenly didn't have it anymore. And so I think that a lot of that is an illusion, to be honest. What suggestions do I have for those of us wanting to live more from mind? Oh, that's a great question. Well, I would say if you want to live more from this whole powerful, creative, infinite space that we're all in, the beautiful thing is that you're already there, and it's almost like pausing to take a few deep breaths there and feeling the rarefied air that you're actually living in. I used to think that that was some sort of destination that I could never reach, and instead I now see that it's actually not just where I am, but what I am and who I am. And it's more about just kind of pausing and realizing that and knowing that you have everything at your disposal. Literally, the world is at your feet. The universe is at your feet. You can do anything that you want. And once that reality, and that is reality, starts to sink in a little bit, you kind of just naturally start living from that place of inspiration and creativity and the kind of buzzing thoughts start to, as one person said on a call today, kind of gray out. They sort of fade into the background, and the real life that you're in starts to come more to the foreground. Let's see, Mimi. My family, we all seem to think that there's not enough. Only one uncle is self-employed and had to really struggle to set it up. Excuse me. That's interesting. You know, I suppose that if you hear certain conversations over and over and over again, that those thoughts can start to sort of seem normal to you. But the point is that we don't need to listen to those thoughts, because all of them are false. You know, if I have a thought that I could make $1 million, well, that's not true, because I might make 10 million. I might make 1 billion. I might make 1,000. I mean, so I don't really see the point of looking at any of that, because it seems irrelevant to me. It's all the same as having a thought like, I'm going to eat this cracker when I get off of this Facebook Live. I mean, that's about the importance that I place on that type of thinking, if that makes sense. Mimi, it all kind of looks the same to me now. Mimi, it's just about doing whatever you want as long as you don't hurt someone else. Kind of, yeah. It's kind of like, you know, like we were saying earlier, looking outside of ourselves and seeing, you know, what can I offer of value? What can I create that's valuable to someone else? What can I do that's going to have a positive impact on the people around me or people around the world? And what inspiration can I act from? You know, going back to J.K. Rowling, you know, she felt like she had a really great story to tell, and she wanted kids to hear it. That was her inspiration. She felt like she could be a novelist. She felt like that was part of who she was, and she wanted to try and see if she could tell this story. And, you know, it's always just acting from that place rather than kind of succumbing to these thoughts that are just not true, because they don't really have to affect the things that we do. We can act from there anyway. Oh, I'm glad you like that, Laura. Thank you. And Jeanette, what have you seen in relatives, friends, others help one see one's own money-making blueprint? Yeah, I think that if I'm understanding your question, Jeanette, like in my own family, you know, because everybody was so different in that way, it seemed to me that everybody just followed what they wanted to do. You know, when my dad and my brother started their own business, and they worked together for about 30 years, you know, they were following inspiration. They were going after what looked interesting to them. Whereas like my sister, who I mentioned, who was a teacher her whole career, that was her blueprint. She really enjoyed her work. She and her husband were both teachers. They're now retired. And that was their inspiration. They loved working with kids all those years and had a great time. You know, for me, it's been a little more of a roundabout pattern. You know, I would be in one career for a while. I get sort of bored, so I do something else, and I do something else. And my sister's never understood that. She's always said to me, you know, wow, you've kind of done so many different things. That's so different from me. And that, I think, is a good example of this, that we each do have our own blueprint. And that's why I'm also so adamant that, you know, if people try to sell you a blueprint for success, you know, they're trying to recreate their own blueprint on paper for you, but it's not going to work that way, because first of all, they can't recreate that. It's impossible, because there's too many variables that occurred during their journey. I mean, it would just be impossible to write everything down and try to give it a step-by-step thing. It's just not possible. And second of all, it's theirs. It's their blueprint. It's not yours. And so I used to fall for those over and over and over again. I did. And then as soon as I stopped doing that was when I started to have my own success in my own business, and my own life basically just started changing for the better when I started to listen to myself, and I listened to the power that was me instead of looking to somebody else's power for the answer, if that makes sense. So thank you for that question. This has been a really fun conversation. I hope you guys have enjoyed it. I'll hang around here for a couple more minutes. If you've got something else you want to say, I would love to hear from you. Otherwise, I can begin to wrap things up. So yeah, so if you're interested, oh, thanks, Mimi. Well, it's true though. We are powerful. You know, we just don't have a tendency to see ourselves in that light. But that's the absolute truth, is that we are powerful beyond any measure. There's no way to measure us, and there's no way to measure what we are capable of, and there's no way to measure what level of achievement we could have. There's no end to us. So there's just no, I don't even know how, I don't have a good word for it. There's the idea that anything could be more powerful than us is just false. And the more that I personally started to see that, the more I was able to really start to live the life that I felt like I wanted to be living. So I'll just leave it there. Elliot, the right blueprint at the right time for me can help if it happens to fill in just my missing piece. So that can be true, I suppose. Yeah. So like but I think it's pretty limited. Like I'll give you a really quick example. So, you know, one of the things that I mentioned was that I wanted to take this program and make it into a membership because frankly, I love talking to you guys. I love this group, and I wanted to figure out a way to keep it going in some sort of ongoing fashion if people were interested in that. And so I sat down one day and I was like, you know, what could I do? How could I sort of form that? And I realized, hey, maybe I could just make it into a membership. Like that could work. But I really had no sense of how a membership operated very well. Like from the other side, I'd been a member of other groups, but I had never actually, I ran a membership very briefly last year and it just wasn't very good. So I stopped it. And I realized, you know, maybe I need to get a little bit of help here. So I joined a membership about memberships. And it has helped me to kind of understand what a good structure is, you know, how to keep people engaged and things like that. So yes, in a limited way, it can be helpful. But I think if somebody's trying to say that they have the blueprint for your six-figure success or whatever it is, I just don't buy into that stuff anymore. It just doesn't seem right. And I keep wondering how many of those people actually made it to that level. Maybe they do, I don't know. And maybe if it's the absolute right time and the right thing, then maybe so. But I know for me, I was looking outside myself again for those things. And it just didn't have any, I didn't have any success with any of those. So that's how it was for me. Oh, great, Stephanie, thank you. And Kim, thank you. Thanks, Jeanette. Hi, Carolina. All right, well, I guess I will wrap things up, and I will be in the group, as always, facilitating things, so please feel free to post in there anytime. And just to clarify one thing, because I was asked this, I wasn't clear about it before, you guys have access to the course materials forever. I made them all downloadable for you, too, so you can download them and keep them on your computer or Dropbox or wherever. So everything is yours to keep, and you will be able to stay in this group through, I think I said March or April, I can't remember exactly, but you guys can stay in the group until then. And then if you want to join the membership and keep going with me, then I have a very, very nice pricing structure for you guys, because you're my special folks. So I just wanted to be clear that you're in it for life if you want to be. So, so thanks so much for being here. And if you have any questions about anything, please feel free to post here or send me an email, mary@maryschiller.com. I'm happy to answer. Thanks, Stephanie. Thank you, everybody, for being here and for being such an inspiration to me. I totally appreciate you guys, and I just love talking with you. So I'll see you again very soon. Have a good day or evening wherever you are. Bye for now.